General Ulysses S. Grant is probably best known for winning the Civil War. But in the new book, To Rescue the Republic, Ulysses S. Grant, The Fragile Union, and the Crisis of 1876, Bret Baier points more to the significance of his presidency.
I think you were right to note that many Americans know about General Grant. Not so many know about President Grant. How did Ulysses Grant view the presidency?
We think about Grant as a Civil War general, but in reality, another one of his keeping the Union together moments was as President of the United States, even leaving the presidency and negotiating a solution to a contested election of 1876.
Grant was at the end of his presidency. Democrat Samuel Tilden and Republican Rutherford B. Hayes faced off to replace him, and their election was disputed in a bitterly divided nation. Sound familiar? In the end, Baier writes, it was Grant who negotiated a bargain that broke the stalemate. Hayes became president, federal troops left the South, Reconstruction ended.
As you're learning more about President Grant, you are covering the breach at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th.
Obviously, the concerns about the election from the Trump camp and from President Trump and all of the protests surrounding that did hearken back to the election of 1876. Obviously, it's different, but it was still a very dangerous time in our country in that the split was real. Back in 1876, the concern was that the country was going to go back into civil war, and that having just come out of the Civil War, this was going to be the thing that throws the country back into it.
You know, as a journalist, and I'm sure you do the same thing, we cover the bitter divide that is today, and we cover so many traumatic events. But then you look at history and you think, my goodness, is this even comparable?
Right. So you're right. I mean, so when I was talking about the January 6th and then thinking about 1876, literally the country could have been thrown back into a giant split where families are fighting families again. That is not what January 6th was, and nor was the fallout from it. Grant was walking into a country that really was on the brink again. And because the southern states, run by Democrats, and there was a lot of concern about the treatment of Blacks and Black Americans and how they would fit into society. Republicans, Lincoln, Grant, others felt like that was their duty to bring in Black Americans into society and to make it whole. There was a lot of pushback in the South to that. And Grant spent a lot of his time fighting for African Americans. And that is something that people forget in the big sweep of history.
Right.
I mean, he fought the KKK more than any other president and really set the table for Black leaders in the South before a lot of the 60s and 70s.
When we look at President Grant, what do you think we can take from his presidency and apply the lessons learned to today?
His biggest thing was to make sure that the country was whole and not split. He did some controversial things. He did some things that really made people in the South very upset. But in the end, by stitching together this grand bargain, he really holds the country together through Rutherford B. Hayes and leads the way to the modern political presidency that we see today. I think historians are going to look back at Grant and his time as president and say this was a consequential presidency, much more than they have before.
Congratulations again, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate the time.